All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. What do you think, Heather?
Sure, works for me.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Courtney Scarborough. I'm the Deputy Director here at NCEAS, which stands for the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis. And my colleague here is Heather Lahr, and she's a Program Manager here at NCEAS. And we'll be going through this presentation with you all. It should be pretty informal. And we're really excited to be here with you and answer any questions you might have. So we're going to be talking about the 2023 call for proposals for our Morpho working groups. And this year we have a regular call for proposals plus a special call and a postdoc position. So we'll go through all of that. And we hope this will be just about 15 minutes of presentation. And then we want to save all the rest of the time for any questions you may have and hope to wrap up early. So if questions come to you at any time, you can pop them in the Q&A. And then at the end, Heather will moderate a Q&A and we can get to all your questions. Okay, so let's get going. So today's agenda is to go through sort of the fundamentals of Morpho as a program and the way the working groups are structured. We'll go through the special call, which is for Wildfire in the West that we're really excited about. And then we'll talk about working group logistics and how we're incorporating trainings, both for environmental data science and SciComm into these working groups. So we have some more opportunities there. Then we'll just touch on the RFP process and timeline, how you can stay updated, and any questions. So our Morpho initiative is really geared towards applied environmental science, and we convene working groups through this initiative that consist of government agency groups, NGOs, tribal and academic researchers, stakeholders, really a interdisciplinary group of people who are focused not only on the science, but the application of that science. And we really hope to accelerate science in the service of environmental management. So our working groups, we've been running working groups at NCEAS for almost 28 years now. And we've sort of found that this is the best setup for working groups. So our working groups consist of teams of 12 to 16 people, and they're across all of the groups I mentioned before. And diversity of groups has really been shown to be a huge factor in their success. So we really look for very diverse groups in terms of kind of all metrics of diversity, including organizational diversity. So we really like to see groups that are not just one agency or one academic institution, but a really nice mix of those things, plus different backgrounds, different specialties. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Working groups gather in person here at NCEAS in Santa Barbara for 2 to 4 collaborative sessions over 2 years. So that's what most of the funding goes to, is bringing everybody to Santa Barbara together. And those sessions are really where the work gets mostly done. We've also added a really nice suite of training so teams can participate in collaborative data science, communication, and facilitation trainings that are all tailored to the project needs. So we'll work with you to determine what your needs are and how we can best help kind of build skills within the group that are actually applied here in these projects. So for the annual call, we will be funding 2 to 3 working groups at $75,000 to $120,000, and for each group across 2 years. So our annual calls are open to all environmental science and management contexts, and then we also will be having special calls. And this year's special call is for Wildfire Resilience in the West, and that can fund 1 or more additional working groups depending on how the proposals review. And the products that come out of these working groups are teams develop models, databases, briefs, publications, and policy recommendations for use in applied management. So this can be anything from peer-reviewed publications to management recommendations to, manuals on how to do things, and, publishing data, making sure data are publicly available. So this year's special call is encouraging proposals that address the ecological, social, economic, or political dimensions of wildfire resilience or recovery in natural and human communities. So the focus should really be relevant to, but not necessarily constrained to, the US and Canadian West, and that does include Alaska as well. And this year we will also be having a 2-year funded postdoc position. So that position will be a UCSB funded position. And the postdocs that are selected will be embedded within the wildfire working group. So they'll be a member of the working group and work to support those working groups, as well as pursue their own research on wildfire resilience. So it'll be a 50-50 split, give or take, of their time. And with the postdoc applications, you will also be asked to write up a short proposal of the independent research you'd like to do while working on your postdoc, and that will be part of the evaluation process for us. So as we mentioned, our working group model brings, 12 to 16 researchers and management practitioners together in Santa Barbara to meet for 4 to 5 days, most often, where we have these focused, intensive working sessions multiple times over the course of 2 years. And these are really focused on addressing and solving big environmental questions through synthesis science. So this working group model, we have seen and experienced over the years, really enables trust, commitment, and creativity through these extended collaborations, not just the in-person, 5-day meetings, but this extended collaboration over 2 years where you're also meeting virtually and working on things kind of in between each meeting. So with diverse people and data sources, working groups can connect otherwise disparate dots and discover key gaps in the current knowledge base, and then increase the velocity of idea generation by coming together and really working intensively. This also, the model also really encourages and enables peer review on the fly, and it facilitates those kind of serendipitous breakthroughs, those opportunities to discover something that you didn't even expect to discover while together. And so when we bring people together, those kind of big ideas come together, and then we're able to iterate kind of in live time on all the ideas in these sessions. So working groups don't collect new data, but instead they meet at NCEAS to synthesize existing data sets and make novel discoveries that couldn't come from a single lab or a single organization. And it's kind of the synthesis process is really what enables bigger discoveries from existing information. So NCEAS was the first synthesis center funded by NSF back in 1995, and it really led to a cultural shift in the way the ecological community kind of towards promoting open synthesis science through convening working groups and training the next generation of ecologists. So over the last almost 28 years now, sociologists have spent a lot of time actually studying the scientists themselves that come together in these working groups to determine what the secret sauce is that makes the working group model work and so uniquely productive. So what we found, what the sociologists have really found, is that compared to independent scientists or remote research collaborations, diverse teams that come together in a neutral meeting space, such as NCEAS, get away from their home institutions, get away from the day-to-day demands of their work and home life, and are able to dive more deeply and creatively into the science questions that are being asked. And the resident support offered at NCEAS really lowers that activation energy that is required for doing synthesis science. And we provide, logistical support, computing capabilities, complex data management, informatics experience, and advice on leadership of synthesis teams. And the key element to really these meeting in person opportunities is it leads to a higher level of trust and a faster generation of ideas, which then in turn leads to higher publication possibilities and kind of more innovative management solutions. And the trainings we offer to teams are aimed at supporting groups at every step of the way through this collaborative synthesis science process. So from the fundamentals of team science, reproducible workflows, data management and storage, data viz, and then we also have science communication trainings. So basically, we offer these tailored trainings to each working group to help during the process, make the process more useful not only to the science, but the scientists. And we interject these trainings when the working group kind of needs them the most. So they'll be provided throughout the 2 years, and they consist of modules from, 1 hour in a working lunch to potentially longer trainings virtually. So it kind of depends on what the needs are and how the working group is kind of progressing. So in terms of NCEAS support, NCEAS, for those of you who are familiar with NCEAS has moved locations. We're only a few blocks away from our old location, but we have a brand new building with a lot of outdoor space. And I think we have really bettered our meeting facilities through this move, which is great. So we offer our full facility. There's an outdoor terrace that is great for lunches, but also great and happy hours, but also great for breakout groups. You can kind of get outside, get in the sun. We have a classroom that can fit up to 90 people and has kind of everything set up for larger meetings. And then we have a main conference room, but we also have multiple smaller conference rooms and breakout spaces. So we kind of have I think we have a space to fit kind of all the needs of a interdisciplinary group. And we can, be flexible on the way all of these are set up too. So NCEAS has really become a model of how to bring diverse groups of scientists and environmental management practitioners together to collaborate and incubate ideas that lead to practical solutions. So the model that we started here in Santa Barbara has now led to 22 additional synthesis centers around the world that are kind of based on the NCEAS model. And in the end, we've really found that the working group model and synthesis science really do accelerate scientific progress. And we hope to be able to support more efforts like this to bring synthesis science to on-the-ground management solutions. And that's really what this Morpho program is focused on. Taking the NCEAS model and expanding it to be even more applied and offer more training opportunities to the people involved. And hosting cohorts of postdoc researchers in collaboration with working groups, we've also found really accelerates their careers in a myriad of ways for many, many years to come. So we're excited that this call this year will also include a postdoc. And the NCEAS postdoc community is growing a lot this year. So it'll be a really nice cohort of postdoctoral students here in person. And with that, I will stop and take any questions. If you have questions, please put them into the Q&A and we can get to those. And this is sort of just our important kind of due dates information. I'd also highlight that we have office hours. So if you have additional questions after today, or if you meet with your proposal group and want to ask more questions of us or really get into the nitty-gritty details, we are here. We have office hours on Wednesday and Thursday from 11 to 12 in half-an-hour increments. And we're happy to even, help co-work, help solve solutions. We really want to expand the people who know about Morpho, who put in proposals. We're excited to have people who have never proposed a working group before propose here. So we want to offer as much support as possible. So sign up for those office hours. And if that time doesn't work, you can also just give us an email and we can set up another time. And then proposals are due in a little over a month on April 5th for both the working groups and the postdocs. And then we will have a scientific advisory council meeting right after that April deadline to review all of the proposals based on criteria that we've developed. And we should award postdocs and working groups in the summer, and we expect them to start in the fall or even into the winter, depending on what the group's needs are. So let's get down to questions. Heather,
All right, yeah, we have a couple in the chat right now. Does NCEAS ever facilitate assembling the working groups, or do you only work with already formed teams?
we can facilitate assembling working groups as well. Often with that type of work, if we're going to assemble a working group, we don't do it through this open RFP process. So, somebody who has a big environmental question that they need answered can come to us outside of the RFP process, and we can work together to kind of develop those ideas and then make sure the right people are in the room. And we can also work on finding additional funding for something like that. So it might be a bit of a different process, but it kind of depends on what the group is thinking.
But we might also be able to, if you have a few people, we might be able to suggest some
Yes.
within this as well. So I would really encourage you to go to one of the office hours and we can chat about that. If you have a core group, but you think you need some more, we might have some ideas. So.
Yep, absolutely. And if you also have, a smaller group identified and work with us to maybe expand that group, we can also pull in our scientific advisory council and they can suggest names as well. And you don't have to have every single person identified, even at the proposal stage. But if you have the type of expertise you think you want there, if you look at the proposal materials, you have to fill out a sort of a table that summarizes your participants. And in that table, you can not only put, who exactly you have in mind, but if you have an expertise that you would like to have as part of your group, but haven't identified that person, you can put it there too, and we can work at that point to help.
Great. All right, is NCEAS looking for US initiatives primarily? What would that mean for a proposal aiming at developing solutions for multilateral/international initiatives?
Multinational initiatives are welcome. It's not necessarily focused on the US, as even our wildfire special call is also focused on Canada specifically, but with the open calls, the annual calls, there's not necessarily a focus on the US. And one of our current working groups is international, North and South America focused. So we welcome international collaborations.
Yeah, and I think you would just incorporate that into the budget. You still want people traveling. So obviously, if you're traveling from far, it's going to cost a little bit more, but everyone is welcome. Let's move on. Can you talk a little bit more about the structure and format of the proposal itself? What's expected there, and to follow up on that, in terms of deliverables, like you mentioned some of the things, but is a peer-reviewed publication expected as a deliverable?
It is not. Peer-reviewed publications, historically have been kind of a currency for academia. And so, previous iterations of working groups were really academic focused, and that was sort of almost why people wanted to participate in working groups, was because they would get these high profile publications. But as working groups diversify, as the goals diversify for working groups, and we're really focused more on applied science, peer-reviewed publications aren't the only currency of success. And we really want to be able to, support people in all the products that would really actually help the science get used. So oftentimes that isn't a peer-reviewed publication. Also, our data science trainings can help with things like how to produce a reproducible report. A lot of times reporting is a huge, putting together a report that says how we did things and how we think people should do things in the future. We can help with that on the data science side so that, we can make this process as efficient as possible. In terms of the content of the proposals, there is a template that you can download on the website that really is explicit in what should be included in those proposals. But there's sort of the traditional, it's not a hugely onerous template, but it does sort of have that traditional a project summary, what you'd like to accomplish. There are 2 sections really focused on how you chose the group you chose and how you incorporated, how you made sure that, you know, the group was diverse and how you prioritize diversity. And there's also a section on how you're going to make sure that you set up a process that remains inclusive throughout the entire working group, and also make sure that everybody, you know, has a voice and kind of set up a process for how you want to run these working groups. And we also ask, there's kind of 2 more technical tables we like you to fill out. One is who the participants are, what their backgrounds are, and if they're confirmed or invited or not yet either of those things. So we ask you to fill out a participant table. We also ask you to fill out a data sources table. So ideas of the data that you would like to start at least with analyzing from a synthesis perspective. And that doesn't have to be fully comprehensive. It doesn't have to be, you know, fully fleshed out at this point, but we also want to make sure that, you know, data sources have been identified and you kind of have a methodology to start, an idea of how you want to start looking at data. So we don't expect, you know, the project to be fully fleshed out and you know exactly what steps you're taking in your methodology, but we do want you to have an idea of like, are the data even available that you think are needed to answer these questions? And are they publicly available? So there is also that. But we do also want, you know, these projects to develop through time. So you don't have to have every step of the way laid out. We want these to really be adaptive to the needs. And hopefully when you get together with your groups, new ideas will come and it can change the direction of the project. But we really hope you have like kind of a core idea that is, you know, ambitious but achievable also.
Great. Let's switch tracks a little bit and go to the postdoc side. We just have one question in terms of requirements around timing to apply. So if they won't get their PhD until spring of 2024, would you still encourage them to apply?
That might be a little bit late for this specific call. I would still encourage people to apply. We expect the working groups to start, you know, fall 2023 or even into winter of 2023-24. So I guess that's not too far off if it's an early spring completion of the postdoc. And that's something we can talk about in the interview process too. But I think it's worth applying. We do, you know, when we are hiring postdocs, we do want to make sure that their advisors are on board with the timeline and with the expectations of kind of getting up to speed on the postdoc position. So we will kind of work collaboratively to make sure a plan for timing and for workload makes sense. But I'd also encourage you to come to one of the office hours and we can discuss it in a bit more detail to kind of understand the timeline a bit better.
And I would also put a plug in for our sister call, which is the Gulf Ecosystem Initiative. And so if you are interested in very similar type synthesis work, but in the Gulf of the US and actually Latin America region, we put a call out typically with postdocs a little bit later. So that timing might work out slightly better. So I would encourage you to look at that on our website as well, if that's at all of interest. And, can postdocs be involved in the annual call, not just the special call, or is there just one postdoc position?
There is just one postdoc position. So the postdoc should have a fire focus. but that doesn't mean they can only participate in the working groups that are selected for the fire related call. We actually we have 2 current working groups, and one of them is also fire related, and it's focused on fire specifically in the West, so in California and Colorado, but with larger context for application. So this postdoc can definitely be involved in, I think, that working group if they're interested, but any of the working groups that they would like to be involved in, you know, I think their participation is welcome, but the priority should be a postdoc focused on fire resilience.
Great. Well, that is all the questions in the chat. I'll just pause for one last call. If anyone has any additional questions. But yeah, I think we've answered them all.
Okay, great. Well, like we mentioned, office hours are a great way to get additional questions answered. You can also email us with any sort of smaller, quick questions that may come up. And we're happy to help in any way that we can. So thanks so much for being here. And we hope you all apply, and hope to see you in future pieces. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.